When was the last time you formed an entirely original thought without any AI assistance?
Oh, that's a heavy question right out of the gate.
Right. I mean, think about it. Not refined by a language model,
Mm.
not structurally assisted by some prompt, just yours. I want you to really sit with that for a second.
Yeah, because honestly, most people, when they really try to remember, they actually can't.
Exactly. And, we are not just talking about some temporary productivity hack here.
Yeah.
We're talking about a fundamental shift in human identity. So welcome to this deep dive.
It's great to be here.
Today, our mission is to analyze a frankly massive stack of sources we've gathered for you. We've got everything from large-scale behavioral studies, neurocognitive research, to some really profound philosophical essays.
Yeah, it's a lot of ground to cover.
It really is.
Yeah.
And we are looking at how large language models, or LLMs, are physically and psychologically impacting human thinking over time.
And it is such a critical mission, right? Because what we're exploring today goes way beyond just the immediate utility of AI. The deeper layer we really need to look at is why this temporary reliance on AI might be leading to permanent, lasting changes in our creative independence.
Like a structural change.
Exactly. We are looking at a potential crisis of what philosophers call epistemic autonomy, which is basically our ability to independently govern our own beliefs, our reasoning, and our knowledge-seeking processes.
Wow. Epistemic autonomy.
Yeah. If you imagine the human brain as this vast, interconnected library of lived experiences and organic insights, we are essentially watching that internal architecture merge with external algorithms.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because the core tension we're looking at is so universal right now.
Oh, absolutely.
AI gives us incredible speed, right?
Yeah.
It gives us polish. It removes that dreaded blank page anxiety, whether you're writing code or drafting a legal brief or just sending a really difficult email.
Yeah, it takes the friction out.
Right. But we have to ask what hidden tax we are paying in cognitive resistance.
Yeah.
So let's look at the paradox of convenience. There's this study from Trendy, and it involves 666 participants across a really diverse spread of age groups, educational
A
backgrounds.
huge sample size.
Huge. And the data revealed a highly significant negative correlation between frequent AI tool usage and critical thinking abilities.
Which is pretty alarming.
I mean, yeah. The more frequently a participant relied on AI, the lower their independent critical thinking scores dropped. And the researchers mediate this entirely through this concept called cognitive offloading.
Right. Cognitive offloading. That's the act of delegating a mental task to an external aid, just to reduce the cognitive demand on your own brain.
Like using a notepad.
Exactly. I mean, humanity has been doing a version of this for a long time. Think about the Google effect or transactive memory.
Transactive memory.
Yeah, it's that psychological phenomenon where we learn to remember where to find information rather than remembering the information itself.
Sure. Like, I don't memorize my friends' phone numbers anymore.
Nobody does. You just remember how to open your contacts app. You remember the folder you saved a document in, not the exact statistics inside the document.
Makes sense.
But what the data from this Trendy study shows us is that AI pushes this dynamic into entirely new territory. We aren't just offloading the storage of information anymore. We are offloading the actual processing, evaluating, and synthesizing of that information.
Okay, I hear that, but tell me if I'm wrong here. Hasn't technology always done this to some extent?
What do you mean?
Well, I remember the panic when I was younger about calculators ruining our math skills.
Oh, yeah, the classic calculator debate.
Right, and the argument was that calculators offloaded basic arithmetic so it could free up our brains to do higher-level physics or engineering. So why is offloading the drafting of a routine email or, summarizing a 50-page PDF any different than using a graphing calculator to skip long division?
That is a great question, and the difference really comes down to the fundamental nature of the task being offloaded. We have a source here, a TED Talk by Advait Sarkar, and he makes this brilliant distinction that answers that exact question.
Okay, what does he say?
So a calculator performs computation. It follows fixed, immutable rules, right? 2 plus 2 is always 4.
Right.
AI, on the other hand, enters the realm of reasoning. It enters the realm of synthesis and judgment.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is a big leap.
It is. When you offload the synthesis of a complex document to an AI, you are bypassing the mental friction required to truly understand its nuances. Sarkar warns that this constant bypassing is turning us into what he calls intellectual tourists.
Intellectual tourists. That's a crazy phrase.
Yeah, we visit the ideas that the AI generates. We might even take a picture of them, but we don't inhabit them. We don't wrestle with the underlying logic.
Because we didn't build it.
Exactly. And because of that, we are effectively turning into middle managers for our own thoughts. We just review and approve the output without understanding the underlying work.
That is terrifying. Just middle managers stamping approval on an algorithm's reasoning.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look at the extended mind thesis.
Okay, lay that on me.
This concept was first proposed by philosophers Andy Clark and David Chalmers, and it's explored deeply in a paper we pulled from the IRE journals. The thesis basically argues that the mind doesn't stop at the skull. It extends into the tools we use to think.
So, like, your notebook is literally part of your memory.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But the IRE researchers point out that in the age of LLMs, human-computer inseparability is no longer just instrumental. It is ontological.
Ontological meaning it fundamentally changes our state of being.
Yes, the AI isn't just a passive tool you pick up and put down like a pen. It is an active cognitive partner that actually shapes how you perceive reality and formulate ideas. It's leaving a watermark on the brain.
A watermark. Man, a watermark implies a kind of permanence, you know.
It does.
It suggests that even when we close a laptop or put the phone away, the structure of our thinking has been altered.
That's the fear.
So if there's a watermark on our brains from everyday tasks, what happens when we try to do something deeply creative? Does the AI help us explore new territory, or does it basically fence us in?
Well, there is a massive pre-registered study published on ArtsFIF that actually put this to the exact test.
Oh, this is the one with the 1,100 participants.
Yes, exactly. Huge study. They wanted to see exactly how AI affects the two core pillars of human creativity. That's divergent thinking and convergent thinking.
Let's tackle divergent thinking first. For everyone listening, this is the ability to generate many different, wildly unique ideas from a single starting point.
Right. It is pure exploration.
Yeah, and to measure this in a lab setting, researchers often use the alternate uses test. They basically give a participant a common object and ask them to come up with as many wild, out-of-the-box uses for it as possible within a time limit.
So if you gave me a standard house brick.
Yeah, you could say it's a paperweight or a makeshift hammer, a doorstop, or if you grind it into dust, it could be red pigment for a painting.
Exactly. That tests your fluency, meaning how many ideas you generate, and your originality. Now, in the RCEIF experiment, they had people do this task with different levels of AI intervention.
Okay, so some had no AI, I'm guessing?
Right. Some had no help, some got direct ideas from the AI, and some received AI strategies, where the AI acted like a brainstorming coach.
How did coach them?
The AI used a well-known corporate brainstorming framework called the Scamper method.
Scamper?
Yeah, it's an acronym that stands for substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to another use, eliminate, and reverse. It's basically a structured way to force a new perspective.
Honestly, that sounds incredibly helpful on the surface. Like you have an AI walking you through a proven framework to stretch your thinking. What's wrong with that?
On the surface, yes, it sounds great. But the crucial part of the experiment was what happened when they took the AI away.
Oh, the unassisted rounds.
Yes. In the final, completely unassisted test rounds, the participants who had been given those AI coaching strategies earlier actually produced less diverse ideas than the people who never used AI at all.
Wow. And we really need to sit with the mechanics of why that happens, because the researchers call it a homogenization effect.
Yes, homogenization.
The human mind literally conforms to the algorithmic structure it was previously exposed to. If we think about the brain as an organ, it consumes a massive amount of our daily calories.
It's very energy intensive.
Yeah, so it's inherently lazy. It is constantly looking for cognitive ease to conserve energy. When the AI provides a rigid structural framework like Scamper, the brain eagerly adopts it.
It takes the shortcut.
Right. But the problem is neural pathways are use it or lose it. Because the brain adopted the machine's rigid scaffolding, it kind of forgot how to build its own quirky, weird, individualized pathways. We lose our individual variants.
It's a persistent homogenization. You assume a framework empowers you, but it actually constrains your subsequent independent thought because, like you said, your brain relies on the shortcut.
It's mind-blowing.
Now, if divergent thinking is exploding outward with ideas, convergent thinking is the flip side of the coin.
Right, narrowing it down.
Exactly. It's the ability to look at a messy, chaotic field of data and narrow it down to find the single correct solution.
So how do you even measure that kind of narrowing down in a lab?
For this, the study used the remote associates test. It's pretty cool. You are given three seemingly random words, and you have to find the one underlying concept or word that connects all three.
Okay, so if the words are shelf, log, and worm,
Right.
you have to
Mm.
mentally cycle through associations until you realize the connecting word is book, like bookshelf, logbook, bookworm.
Exactly. It requires a very specific kind of cognitive leap. And the findings here were deeply counterintuitive.
Let me guess, the AI didn't help here either.
Well, you might assume that having an AI act as a Socratic guide, giving you hints, nudging you toward the answer without just handing it to you, would train your brain to be better at recognizing those patterns.
Right, like a tutor.
But the study found that participants who received AI guidance actually performed significantly worse in the later, completely unassisted test rounds compared to those who had zero AI exposure.
That is wild. It makes me think of having a backseat driver.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Think about it. Imagine you're trying to navigate a new city. If the person in the passenger seat is constantly talking, constantly throwing out suggestions, take a left here, actually, maybe it's the next right, watch out for that sign, even if they are genuinely trying to help, the sheer volume of their input paralyzes your own spatial awareness.
You're just reacting to them.
Exactly. You get so overwhelmed managing their input that you forget how to navigate the road yourself.
This raises an important question. What is the underlying psychological mechanism of that paralysis? Like, why does guidance actually hurt us when we're trying to find a single solution?
What do the researchers think?
They suggest two mechanisms are at play. First, just like your backseat driver analogy, the AI is overloading the user's working memory.
Mm,
It gives us so many related concepts to juggle that we lose the cognitive bandwidth to actually piece the puzzle together ourselves.
that makes total sense. And the second,
The second, much more profound mechanism is that the AI robs the participant of the aha moment.
the click.
Yeah. Convergent problem solving is built entirely on that sudden flash of insight, that internal click when the pieces align. If the AI is constantly preempting your cognitive leaps with helpful hints, you never develop the internal neural pathways required to make those leaps on your own.
Which brings us to the physical reality of what is actually happening inside our heads.
Right, the neuroscience.
If you close your eyes right now and imagine an active EEG brain scan, all those glowing nodes and firing synapses, we actually have behavioral data mapping this.
Yes, the ISV conference slides.
Yes. We have these fascinating slides from an ISV conference workshop detailing an MIT Media Lab study. They hooked college writers up to EEG machines to measure their brain connectivity while they were drafting essays.
And the neural evidence is just stark. The students who wrote using large language models showed significantly weaker brain engagement.
Literally weaker.
Yes. Their neural networks were underactive compared to the students writing from scratch. The AI-assisted writers were basically operating in a state of metabolic conservation.
Just coasting.
But the most revealing detail wasn't even the EEG scan itself. It was the long-term effect.
Oh, right, months later.
Exactly. A few months after finishing the semester, many of the students who relied heavily on the AI couldn't accurately quote their own essays. They couldn't remember the sources they cited, and they couldn't even articulate the specific arguments they had made on paper.
Because they had zero metacognitive ownership of the text.
None at all.
They didn't actually write the essay, they just managed the production of an essay.
We can connect this back to how the brain physically adapts to its environment, particularly regarding spatial memory.
Like the GPS stuff.
Yes. Neuroscientists have extensively studied older adults who rely exclusively on GPS navigation instead of building internal mental maps of their cities. Over time, that reliance strongly correlates with reduced gray matter in the hippocampus.
And that's the brain region responsible for spatial memory, right?
Right. And that atrophy actually raises the risk for early onset Alzheimer's. When we constantly outsource our recall and our analytical reasoning to LLMs, we are risking a similar atrophy in different regions. Our internal idea formation muscle is quite literally weakening from disuse.
We are bypassing the lived experience entirely. This perfectly mirrors this article we pulled from Psychology Today, where the author introduces this concept called existential surrender.
Existential surrender. That is a heavy term.
It really is. We've talked to cognitive surrender, giving up the mental math, but existential surrender is about losing the messy experiences that actually shape who we become as thinkers. Well, here's where it gets really interesting. The author uses an analogy to Dante's Inferno.
Wow. Okay, Dante.
Yeah. In Dante's vision, the very lowest level of hell wasn't a fiery furnace. It was a frozen lake. Total absolute stillness.
Frozen lake.
Right. And the author argues that AI removes the friction of life. It takes that messy, stumbling, incredibly frustrating movement from point A to point B, and it replaces it with immediate, frictionless answers.
Because you don't have to pace around the room.
Exactly. You don't have to write 3 terrible drafts before finding the good one. But that friction, the struggle of not knowing, is the mechanism that actually shapes our intellect.
We live in a culture that views cognitive struggle as a bug in the system, like an inefficiency that needs to be optimized away by technology.
Right.
But what if that inefficiency is actually the crucible of human genius? If we optimize away all the intellectual struggle, we're simultaneously optimizing away our capacity for profound, original thought.
Which leads us to maybe the most important part of this deep dive.
Yeah.
How do we protect our epistemic autonomy in an age where the friction is just disappearing?
It's the big question.
Let me ask you, the listener, a direct question. If you lose your ambiguity tolerance, your ability to sit with a half-formed idea in uncomfortable silence without reaching for a chatbot to finish the sentence for you,
Yeah.
what happens to your unique value?
To answer that, we really have to look at the mechanics of how human beings actually learn. There is a deeply relevant paper from the journal Symposium that brings in the work of Lev Vygotsky.
He's a foundational developmental psychologist, right?
Yes. And Vygotsky is famous for mapping out the zone of proximal development.
Zone of proximal development.
Right. This is essentially the psychological sweet spot for deep learning. It occurs when a task requires a cognitive struggle that isn't too easy, but also isn't completely impossible.
It's a stretch.
Exactly. It requires you to stretch your current capabilities. The physical effort of stretching builds new neural pathways. AI's instant gratification completely destroys this zone. It takes a task that should require a healthy cognitive stretch and flattens it into zero effort.
It's like it hands you the barbell already lifted to the top. You get the result of the exercise, but your muscles didn't do any of the tearing and rebuilding necessary to actually get stronger.
That's a perfect way to put it. And to maintain our epistemic autonomy, we have to artificially inject epistemic friction back into our daily workflows.
How do we do that practically?
Well, the author of the Symposium paper argues we must adopt a method of continuous Socratic interrogation. We need to stop treating AI as this infallible oracle that hands down absolute truth.
Right, treating it like magic.
Instead, we have to treat it as an epistemic collaborator that we actively doubt. We should use it to generate counterarguments to our most deeply held beliefs, or use it to point out logical fallacies in our thinking, rather than just blindly accepting its polished, frictionless outputs. We have to maintain human agency at the absolute center of the epistemic process.
That ties into a really brilliant visual metaphor from an interview we found in the Harvard Gazette. An education researcher there brings up Athena, the Greek goddess of wisdom.
Oh, I love this one.
Yeah, Athena is always depicted in mythology with an owl sitting on her shoulder. The owl represents a tool that gives her a broader perspective, right? It helps her see in the dark. It makes her wiser.
Mm-hmm.
But the crucial detail is that the owl doesn't do the thinking for her. The owl doesn't make the tactical decisions in battle.
That is the perfect model for an ideal human-AI symbiosis. The danger we face right now is that we are letting the owl write the essay, formulate the business strategy, and solve the complex creative problem, while we just sit there and take the credit as the output manager.
The intellectual tourists again.
Exactly. If we allow that to become the default mode of human operation, the watermark left on our brain won't be one of expanded capability. It will be a permanent watermark of dependency.
So what does this all mean? We've covered a massive amount of ground today. We've looked at behavioral studies showing how offloading reasoning to AI can physically lower your critical thinking skills.
We covered a lot, yeah.
We've explored the mechanics of how AI strategies homogenize our divergent ideas and basically paralyze our convergent problem solving by robbing us of the aha moment.
The loss of the click.
Right. We've imagined the underactive EEG scans of college students losing metacognitive ownership of their own work. And we've talked about the absolute existential necessity of preserving cognitive friction.
It's so vital.
So the takeaway for you is this. AI is an undeniably incredible tool for thought. It can expand your capabilities in ways we couldn't have even imagined a decade ago. But it only works to your benefit if you absolutely refuse to surrender the intellectual friction that makes you human.
You have to guard it.
You have to actively guard your idea formation muscle. You have to be willing to be frustrated, to be slow, and to sit in the messy, frozen lake of a hard problem.
I want to leave you with a final concept to mull over as you go about your day. We know now that our brains physically rewire based on the cognitive effort we expend. We know that neural pathways prune themselves when they aren't used.
Use it or lose it.
Exactly. We also know that AI is fundamentally designed to smooth over every instance of confusion, boredom, or intellectual struggle. So if the vast majority of society defaults to this frictionless existence, constantly outsourcing their reasoning to language models, could the next great leap in human genius actually come from someone who deliberately chooses the path of maximum cognitive resistance?
Oh.
Could choosing not to use AI for your deepest thinking become the ultimate, most highly valued competitive advantage of the future?
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of your own mind. Our challenge to you today is simple. Find a hard problem and just sit with it, completely unassisted. See what happens when it's just you, your thoughts, and the friction. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening. We create new episodes every week and post on Thursdays. Consider subscribing and clicking the notification bell so that you're alerted when the next podcast goes live. See you next week.